Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of our wrestling podcast. So without further ado, the following contest is scheduled for one fall, and today's topic, overhyped and failed gimmicks.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Butters along with Jess.
Hi.
And Cuz.
Hey, what's up, buds?
Giving you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling from a pure fan standpoint. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, overhyped and failed gimmicks. I got to tell you guys, when I started thinking about this topic, we started picking some characters that I really wasn't familiar with. It got me a little uneasy. There were some times where I wasn't watching wrestling, and for good reason. There was some bad wrestling out there at times. But when we started talking about this a little more and getting a little more in depth, it got really exciting and a lot of fun. We're basically going to take a good 4 to 5 major gimmicks that were really pushed. I mean, we're talking push with money, push with TV time, something that you're sure that the people in control, the Vince McMahons, the Eric Bischoffs of the world at the time, whoever it may be, they were sure that this stuff was going to work, and it couldn't have been worse. And that's what makes it so amazing to talk about. So, by the way, guys, do you have anything you want to talk about when it comes just to overhyped and failed gimmicks in the topic of today? Jess, what do you have on that before we get started?
I think the important thing to remember is it's their intention was to put money into these gimmicks, and they did put money into these gimmicks because they really were like, no, you need to be good. You need to be, upper middle card at least. And I think that's the key. And so we chose 5 people that they really pushed, like, you're going to do something for us. And then it just totally fell apart. Because there's a lot of, things like Isaac Yankem, right? Like, before he was Kane, he was Isaac Yankem, the evil dentist. And they literally just brought him in as like the stupid dentist gimmick and brought him in and to feud with Brett for like 2 months or whatever. And there was no money put into him. He came out in a stupid little dentist outfit.
He went to
all that stuff. And yeah. So, but that gimmick doesn't count is my point. I'm trying to make an example of what doesn't count because, yeah, I mean, there was no money put into it. It wasn't meant to be a big deal. But these ones that we're going to talk about, they had money put into them or tons of vignettes, like to where it was like, no, we're pushing you like a big star, and then the result just completely shit the bed.
Yeah, and in hindsight, some were like, "What the fuck were you thinking?" Because what do you have to add on that?
I would like to add honorable mention for overhyped gimmicks that failed.
Yeah, go for it.
2 names: Hulk Hogan.
They'll be trying to drink.
Dude, you gotta stop that shit, bro. You're gonna piss some people off. They're gonna come and shit in your shoes. I'm just telling you.
I admitted on our first episode that I love the Hulkster. I just like the troll,
brother.
Bro, yeah, not everybody likes a troll, bro. They're kind of ugly and they hide under bridges. But anyway,
I don't.
Right. Well, you are ugly, so
that's fine.
We'll send pictures. We'll put a vote on our YouTube channel at the OWC, our wrestling channel. Just give it a search on that and you'll find us. Moving on to our first overhyped gimmick, guys. This one I didn't know about. I'm a little ashamed, but this was the time where I really wasn't watching wrestling, as I had said. But getting to know this particular gimmick, it's amazing. It's absolutely incredible how this happened with. And you guys know what I'm talking about. We're talking about the Kiss Demon. Some of you know about the Kiss Demon. Some of you do not. And I think just to give you a little bit of backdrop before we can get into the Kiss Demon, which I know that Jess is going to just go right into and give us some great insight, we got to talk about the man behind the Kiss Demon. And really, you can't start that without talking about Dale Torberg. Dale Torberg is kind of interesting. He used to play professional baseball, but never got past the minor league level and eventually got into professional wrestling. A little sidebar on that. He took a fastball to the face in the minor leagues, and that ended his baseball career. And that's how he kind of got into wrestling. He basically met up with Hogan and Savage, and they spoke and said, you got to get into wrestling, brother. I'm sure Hogan and Savage, like, brother, you got to do it. You got to get into wrestling. but it feels like they said it to everybody at one point. He did some debut in WCW and did some pit crew work, went to the power plant, and he actually worked in the American Wrestling Federation as the MVP, which was a baseball player character. And then eventually he got into WCW back in '98 and became the Demon. But what's really interesting about the Demon in Kiss, before he became the Demon, somebody else was the Demon. And Jess, who was that? Talk about who the Demon was before that. Talk about the Kiss gimmick. Talk about where it was coming from. Talk about why it happened, and tell us about how crazy the amount of money that went into this and why. And at the end of the day, we can talk about why it failed.
So WCW in 1999 was going down the toilet. And I'm going to be graphic here. I can only equate this to, when you're taking a number 2, right, on the toilet, and the main part's coming out. It's coming out. It's already outside. Like, it's already seen, it's already touched air. But it hasn't dropped yet. It has not splashed in the water yet. That was WCW in 1999. And 2000 was the, breaking from the asshole and falling right into the toilet. That was 2000. But in 1999, you can't do anything. You can't, once it comes out, you can't reverse it. It's coming out. And that's just what WCW 1999 was. Sorry if that's a little too graphic, but that's exactly what WCW was in 1999. They probably fell harder and faster of any, not just wrestling promotion, but any business I've ever heard of, any kind of public business that I've heard of. I mean, they went from this wave of NWO in 1996 and 1997 and making cable ratings and breaking pay-per-view ratings with, Starrcade 97, Hogan versus Sting, and then they got lucky with Goldberg, and Goldberg kind of carried him through 98, and they were still on fire in 98. And then a lot of bad decisions towards the end of 98 just predetermined what 1999 was going to be. So by August the 23rd, 1999, which is an episode of Monday Nitro, live from Las Vegas, the MGM Grand Arena, they had hired Kiss, the band Kiss, to perform.
This. On a personal note, I'm getting ready to say the words that I've always wanted to say since I first heard this group back in 1976. So it's my honor to say this. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go for it, fans. All right, Las Vegas, you wanted the best. You got the best. The hottest band in the world, Kiss!
I'm going to repeat that because I think I need to, because people probably didn't hear me. The fucking band Kiss was hired by WCW and Eric Bischoff to perform live on a wrestling show in a war that they were losing for at least 10 to 11 months at this point. So WCW needed to do something. As I just discussed, there's no way you could stuff the shit back in the asshole, but they had to do something. They still thought in 99, we're going to do something. It's going to turn this shit around for us. So they decided to say, hey, why don't we get about 4 60-year-old men in face paint, which ironically is actually kind of close to wrestling. So I don't know why I'm making this joke, because that's what wrestling is sometimes.
And by the way, they're still selling out today. So
I know, Dave, you don't have to ruin my story because you're totally right. And I just realized that I was making a bad metaphor. But but that's their thing. See, this is the thing. So actually, no, I am kind of onto something, because WCW was really always from the beginning, even when they were hot, they had a good undercard. They had the cruiserweights, which was youth. They had a lot of younger guys in there. But the main events were the Hogans and the Pipers, these guys that were in their mid to late 40s, and the Flairs and all that stuff. And even Sting and Luger were old at this point, or at that point, So they were famous for having old main events as far as age-wise is concerned. concerned, and very young and youthful undercards. That's what WCW was for like 3 years. Even when they were number one, that's what they were known for. Whereas WWF was losing in the ratings, but Vince was always really good with storytelling, and with Pat Patterson behind the scenes and, you know, guys like that, they really told good stories, and they had great finishes for their matches and all that stuff. And even when they were trying to figure out their talent and they were kind of losing really bad in the ratings, they were still telling good stories for the most part. They just couldn't get their characters right. So WCW could never get that right. So in a way, it's like, we're going downhill. We're losing to the WWF. You know, they have Stone Cold, which Austin wasn't like a 20-year-old, but his character was new, and his feud with Vince was new, and The Rock was new. And, you know, Mankind, who WCW fumbled with and couldn't get right, was new in the sense that he kept reinventing himself, whether it was being 3 different characters or coming back as Cactus Jack or as Mankind or as Mick Foley. D-Generation X was on fire, and Triple H was coming into his own at that point, and you had Kane, and you had all these great guys that they were forced, in other words, because WCW pulled all the talent.
Sure,
they were forced to make new stars. So WCW's bright idea in late '99 was, why don't we take an old washed up rock band? And I say washed up in the sense of, yes, I know they're selling out, and yes, Kiss obviously has a massive fan base. So I'm sure any Kiss fans are going to be like, you don't fucking know what you're talking about. And you're right, because you're right. They do sell out everywhere, and they do sell tons of Kiss toothbrushes and Kiss, socks and all that stuff. And I get that. But like, to save a wrestling company that's going downhill and getting their ass beat in a war that they were winning a year before, like, you don't go and get a bunch of guys that are 60 years old in face paint and that are musicians and not wrestlers and be like, can you do a concert on our wrestling show? That's something that you don't do, is my point.
Yeah.
It took forever to get to this point. But
so to your point, Jess, talk about what the idea was, what they were going to do, what the future plans were, what the idea of Kiss Demon was, who was going to play it. If we can delve right into that. So they and long story short, they hire Kiss, the band, to perform on this episode of Monday Nitro, August the 23rd, 1999. You can go to the network and check it out. Kiss was going to perform God of Thunder at the end of the show, and what they were going to do is they're going to have like this gargoyle kind of statue come up, and split in half. And then a wrestler that they were hyping weeks before, they were hyping that Kiss was going to be performing and that a new wrestler was going to debut with Kiss on the stage, a Kiss-themed wrestler. Sure.
So at the end of the song, they do God of Thunder, which I like God of Thunder a lot, actually. It's a great song.
Yeah.
So this stone gargoyle comes out, splits in half, and out there stands a wrestler, a pretty large wrestler, that's he is dressed in Kiss garb. He's got like the Gene Simmons boots on with the demons on the feet. He's got spikes on. He's got the black cape. He's got Kiss makeup on. So it kind of looks like a combination of all of them. And under all that face paint was Bryan Adams, who in the WWF was known as Crush. Was under the gimmick. He was the original Kiss demon. And
so that's Crush, everybody, from Demolition when they went Freebird Rules, when they went with 3 actual, tag team wrestlers. Crush was the new one that was going to replace Axe, later on. If you know who Demolition is, you understand that. And then became Kona Crush later on. That totally flopped as well, but they didn't put nearly as much money into that as they do here. So sorry, Jess, just to kind of give people an idea of what we're talking about.
No, and Gene Simmons himself, I don't think I'm sure they did disclose a number, but Kiss got millions just to perform that night on Nitro.
Yeah.
Just the band to perform. And then to pay for all the rights. So the Kiss Demon on top of this, after this week when he debuted, he would come down to the ring to God of Thunder, which, okay. Sure. So you pay Kiss to go and perform. So you pay millions. You're losing a Monday Night War. WCW in 1999 was losing millions of dollars by this point. And Eric's bright idea was to overpay a band. And I know I used the term washed up earlier, but I'm just trying to drive a point home here. A band that would only attract really like older fans at this point, because they'd been around for so long, Kiss, and they're legends. But like they were on their probably their 20th farewell tour at this point. And so, and Kiss has never been cheap, and Gene Simmons was not shy about that. Like, they demand a pretty penny just to appear.
You want me to put this fucking makeup on? It's going to cost you a pretty penny. It takes time.
And then you want us to perform on top of that, and
Here
you
we
want
go.
to use our song for a wrestler to come down to? Well, you're going to pay. So, bitch, I mean, already before if you even knew the gimmick was going to work or not, you're paying millions of dollars just to debut this guy.
Just to see if it's going to work.
Yeah.
So Jess, let me ask you. You talked about Bryan Adams earlier. That's crazy because where does Dale Torberg fit into this conversation?
Well, Bryan Adams just got to a point where he wanted a little bit more money to do this, and they were pretty much like, no. Like, so right there, real quick, I find that absolutely fascinating. So, and here's why. And sorry, not to interrupt you too much there, but I find it absolutely fascinating that you would have Kiss come out and spend all this money and put this money into a gimmick of the Demon. And Bryan Adams, by the way, is much bigger than Torberg. Torberg's a big guy, but Bryan Adams is huge. Like, we're talking 320, and that's what you want. You want that huge size. You want that big gimmick, and you want to make it work. And at the end of the day, the one person you decide not to pay is the one that is going to carry this gimmick on going forward. I find that absolutely insane. That's crazy to me. You spent all this money already, and you're like, yeah, we're not going to pay you. Can you explain that? I mean, can anybody explain that to me? No, it's WCW. I mean, really,
I guess that's the answer. And I guess that's
the wrestling company.
Sorry. Just moving on. It's WCW, and that's all you need to know. Yeah. So how did it come about when Torberg came in and Adams came out?
I mean, really, like, it was kind of seamless. They didn't really make a big thing. You couldn't tell, obviously, because of the guard. So, I mean, really, he just flopped from the beginning. He pretty much would beat prelims here and there, and that's all that ever really came of that. And the Kiss Demon, sadly, was kind of toiling around even in the year 2000. They tried to put him in a program with Vampiro and all this stuff, and it didn't work out. Literally nothing ever materialized. He just beat a couple jobbers, and then he started losing all the time, and that was the investment. All that money that they paid Kiss to debut this wrestler, they jobbed him out. And I have not a theory. This is why it happened. So to go further into what happened was the whole thing that Bischoff had in his head from hiring Kiss was they were going to, if this Nitro thing was successful, which obviously, Bischoff and Kiss were sucking each other's dicks back and forth going like, oh, yeah, you're great. This is not going to fail. How could this fail? Let me tell you how this could fail. This segment on Monday Nitro where Kiss performed God of Thunder and then the Kiss Demon debuted was the lowest rated Nitro segment in its history. Yeah. Since its inception in 1995, this was the lowest rated segment, 15-minute block.
Yeah, the lowest 15-minute block, yeah. That is absolutely insane.
And what the goal was, not to cut you off, but what the goal was is that Eric Bischoff was going to continue to work with Kiss. And that year, New Year's Eve of 1999, going into the new year, the new millennium, 2000, they were actually going to have a live pay-per-view that crossed over, that probably started at 10 or 11 p.m. and would continue on through midnight, through New Year's, and then end at 1 in the morning or whatever, where it was going to be a Kiss concert meshed together with a WCW pay-per-view. So they would have a Kiss song, and then they would have a WCW match or a couple matches, and then they have another Kiss song, and then blah, blah, blah. And then they would either do something together or whatever to count down the new millennium, and then they would finish the pay-per-view off. That was the goal. That's what Bischoff wanted. And I think on his podcast, 83 Weeks, he talks about it in other interviews. And he's super passionate, which makes me laugh, which is why I like Bischoff, because I know that's not a popular statement to say, but God damn it, he was passionate. To this day, I mean, I can say all that out loud and be like, what were you thinking? But Bischoff's like, no. But the goal was, because Bischoff, he's kind of a salesman / con man. He always has been. So he's going to sell you on it. But he's still like, no. And we were going to do this. And imagine if we had a pay-per-view and then, the ball drops in 10, 9, 8, and then they count it. And then we're in the ring and fireworks and Kiss, does I Want to Rock and Roll All Night. And then right after that is the main event and Hogan comes out and whatever, that's Bischoff's big thing. That's what they wanted.
And I'll tell you, wrestling gets highly scrutinized for the failures. And, and I know that I don't think there's anybody on this podcast that doesn't appreciate Bischoff and the changes he forced and kind of revived wrestling to make it into, I don't say what it is today, but to one of its highest points ever. And a point we'd hope we get back close to eventually with anyone, with any particular wrestler or any particular venue or federation for that matter. But the thing about Bischoff that I think that, I know we're kind of shitting on him, but at the same time, you have to admire the guts and, all guts, all glory kind of mentality, because what he's trying to do here. He's trying to get crossover, right? When it comes to the ratings, I know a lot of people at WWE said they didn't care, but they did. They cared about the ratings, and I know they shared and split a lot of those ratings. You can't get a 5.0 on one show and a 4.0 on another. That's shared ratings. We all know that, but the thing about this is that's what Bischoff was trying to get. How do I get people to change from a whole nother venue, aside from fighting with Raw all day, to get me some more real ratings? And he's thinking about, well, if I can get crossover from Kiss fans, that might be a way to work. I know maybe he never really said that, but that's obvious what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a whole different type of person to watch this show. And that's the unfortunate part about it. Jess has talked about it. Instead of people switching over to watch Kiss play, everybody just changed the channel off it and went over to WWE and made it even worse to make it the lowest rated time slot for wrestling in WCW's history. And that's unfortunate, because that he was hoping that, oh wow, I'm going to see Kiss. Oh wow, they even have a wrestler that's a Kiss demon. I'm going to come back and watch that wrestler go at it with somebody. And it couldn't have been further from the truth of what actually did happen. But you have to credit the man, because I'll tell you guys, on network television, there's so much more money lost on just regular sitcom shows and action sequence, miniseries, millions upon millions of dollars, and nobody talks about it. It's because it's wrestling that it gets so scrutinized. But you have to admire him for thinking differently. He didn't think like the average booker of wrestling. And I think that's why we like him so much. I know we kind of shit on them in a lot of situations, but you kind of have to respect that way of thinking, because, he knew he was getting his ass kicked. He knew he had to do something different. At least he tried.
At the very least, he was trying to connect the dots. I mean, he wasn't just trying to throw something against the wall that stuck for a week or two, and then, so what after that? I don't know. Like, he really was like, and then it's going to lead into a New Year's pay-per-view. We can say it now and say it's dumb, but like, at least that was his. At least he had a business plan. At least he had a goal. And to clear more on the Bryan Adams thing, Bryan Adams never actually wrestled as the Kiss Demon. He came out. Yeah, he came out of the statue. He did all that. He wanted a little bit more money, but never really felt comfortable. They actually had Dale Torberg in mind originally for it.
Yes.
But they wanted to put Bryan Adams in it because Bryan Adams was kind of more seasoned in the ring, even though he was terrible. In my opinion, Bryan Adams was not very good.
Yeah, he was never very good.
Rest in peace, but he was never he was always sloppy. So like, or he would do moves in super slow motion where I'm like, it's like a magician showing you the trick, like while he's doing it, like doing it so slow, you see him do the sleight of hand and you're like, you put that in your left hand. Like, that's the way I feel that Bryan Adams.
I swear I took a nap between the beginning of Bryan Adams' backbreaker and the end. Yeah.
No, it is. And it was like, it was like someone at a wrestling school showing you, like if you went to a wrestling school and paid, and the instructor standing in the middle of the ring going, here's how you do a spinning backbreaker. You pick him up and then he holds him to show you, and then he spins him again, and then you put your knee out, and then you sit on your other knee, and then you put him down. That's every time I wrestle, I was like, I feel like a wrestling instructor showing the secrets of wrestling live on TV. Like, and here's how you pick up for a body slam. You pick up here, you hold them, you slam them down. Like, that's, to me, that's Bryan Adams.
Why did you almost have a Pat Patterson accent when you did that?
I have no idea. That's me talking.
Holy crap. And I kind of feel bad for Mr. Lloyd here. We got Raymond Lloyd, right? He's an actual martial artist, and he's an actor. He's a professional wrestler, I guess. But it should be in that order. They actually have him as a martial artist, professional wrestler, and actor. I think professional wrestler should come last. But what's funny is it's what he's still known for. And what we're talking about the gimmick is the ring name of Glacier. And the great thing about Glacier was, oh my God, there was vignettes back when they actually had vignettes, and they would bring people in and get them to watch this vignette and go, oh man. And what was it, Jess? What did they say?
Well, these vignettes were just playing, and they started playing them in 1996 during Monday Nitro. And I want to say they started playing during the summer of 96. It was right as the NWO was taking form. Like, Scott Hall came through the crowd. Kevin Nash surprised the audience a week later or 2 weeks later, whatever it was. And then I want to say they started playing the vignettes right before Hogan turned heel, but it might have been right after. But either way, it was right around that. and they started playing these vignettes. It was like right after they'd come back from commercial, they wouldn't go to a wrestling match. It would be this like stone symbol of like a Japanese symbol, and it would have snow falling, and it would just be, it would just say "Blood runs cold," and then that would it would say. And then the next couple weeks, it would do the same thing and say "Blood runs cold."
The world is about to change. Enter the realm. Blood runs cold.
Glacier coming soon to WCW. And they did this for weeks, and they really built this thing up where they invested a lot of TV time into these vignettes of Glacier. And they weren't really of Glacier doing anything. It was just symbols or, Blood runs cold or whatever. And so that's how they started baiting you. So you're thinking, okay, already Hall and Nash had jumped, and a couple other people had started to jump. So now things were getting interesting in the Monday Night Wars. And so people are like, someone else is jumping. Someone's jumping. And then, if you've ever seen the video game Mortal Kombat, everybody knows who Sub-Zero is. And basically what it was is a wrestler that looked like Sub-Zero. That's all Glacier was. So when he finally debuted, he comes out. I think they dropped fake snow from the ceiling, if I'm not mistaken. That's what they did. And then they played like Mortal Kombat sounding theme music. And he was doing like karate shadow moves in the middle of the ring and all this stuff. And then he takes his mask off and he had contacts in, like these crystal blue eyes and like all this stuff. And he was wearing the costume. First of all, the armor that he wore cost thousands and thousands of dollars to make. Eric Bischoff had a movie studio make this costume. Like they would, the costumes like in the Ninja Turtle movies, like the way Shredder looked, like that kind of armor. It's like it's not real steel or real metal. It's like a really tough foam, so it could take a beating. But it looked like it was like tough leather or tough metal.
Yeah, we got AFX Studio.
He looked like Sub-Zero from fucking Mortal Kombat. That's what he looked like.
Yeah, so you got AFX Studio making this thing out of Atlanta, costing $35,000.
One wrestler's costume.
Jesus.
Did Flair even say his robes cost that much? Didn't say Flair used to brag about it. Yeah, did he say that about his robe? I thought he said this robe cost $10,000 or whatever he used to say. I don't even know if Ric Flair's robes cost that much to make, for the love of God. Like
not even Ric
Flair himself could elaborate that much money. Like,
I'm not telling any of you which one of my robes I'm wearing till I get there.
My robe is worth $35,000. No, it's not, but Glacier's fucking costume is. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. Train wreck in the making. So all these vignettes, all this hype, and we get this Sub-Zero in the ring. He's not a great wrestler. He does a bunch of karate moves or whatever. He beats
he's a martial artist by trade.
Better than Hogan.
Which is respectable. But everybody knows, again, Bischoff, Bischoff was in karate and martial arts, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Bischoff
he actually won a couple of awards and stuff like that.
Correct.
Like he was actual champion in some tournament. So Bischoff literally was into martial arts. So he thought, well, let's and this is my point. This is my big, and I like Eric Bischoff, but this is my big problem with him is you got to be aware of what's going on around you, right? So you break the walls down for forever. For the rock and wrestling on up until they figured out that it didn't work anymore. You had plumbers and dentists and
dumpster
Abe Knuckleball Schwartzes and Tatankas and you had all these exaggerated characters, and then it just stopped working in the early to mid 90s. It just stopped working. So and then the mainstream audience went away, and both companies were struggling to figure out what would work, and they were just trading old talent back and forth and trying to make it work with them or whatever. So finally Bischoff stumbles upon bringing Hall and Nash in and calling them Hall and Nash. Not Ramon and Diesel, which you couldn't legally anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, he could have easily brought Diesel, Kevin Nash in and called him the Semi, and brought Hall in and called Hall the Razor Man or whatever. Like, you could have done any of that, but he didn't. He said, I want to bring you in like you're outsiders, like you're real people. You're Hall and you're Nash. You're Scott Hall and you're Kevin Nash. You're going to come through the crowd like you're real. And you're really invading this company. So what started catching fire after that? People that were real. How many people did you know? Like Bryan Adams went to WCW he was Crush in WWF and went to WCW as Bryan Adams, which is his real name. Brian Clark was Adam Bomb, and he goes to WCW as Brian fucking Clark. Like, so Ray Traylor was the big boss man, and now he's Ray Traylor. So they're doing that's the direction they're going in '96, and so instead Bischoff goes, but I mean, that's all working. What if we have a fucking ninja? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's going the opposite of what you're doing with your company. You're doing it. You're doing it with your company. You're taking them in this cool direction that's getting young people to watch and the casual fan to watch again. So your answer now is you're in this and it's all working. It's all working, baby. Like, I got realistic storylines going on, and people, are they still working for the WWF? Or are they blah, blah, blah? He's got all that. So now I'm going to follow it up with Sub-Zero. Like, I don't understand sometimes. Like, Bischoff, he's so interesting to me because that was his answer. And you can't give me he was kind of doing that. No, even before they debuted Scott Hall, they were getting away from that because they brought the cruiserweights in. They brought Rey Mysterio was under a mask, but he was a wrestler under a mask, right? He wasn't like Lizard Man, Rey Mysterio. He wasn't that. Yeah. Rey Mysterio Jr.
There's a big difference between luchador and gimmick.
And wrestler that just wears a mask because exactly he's honoring his heritage and he's a luchador. Like, so he was already going that direction before Hall and Nash, before he even knew what he was going to do with the NWO. So he during it, he's like, my answer to follow up with this craziness is a fake guy who looks like a Sub-Zero, which is already part of another franchise. So this makes no sense. And I'm going to put an inexperienced wrestler in there who doesn't know what he's doing. But then here's what I'm going to do, Dave and Cuz. Here's what I'm going to do to make Glacier feel comfortable. I'm going to bring in a guy named Mortis and put like a skull mask on him and pay the same fucking movie studio and another X amount of $1,000 to make this asshole's costume, which was his name was Chris Canyon out of the mask, by the way. And then I'm going to bring another guy in who is Brian Clark, and I'm going to call him Wrath. And I'm going to make him look like Shredder from the Ninja Turtles and also pay said movie company the same thousands of dollars to make his thing. And so when they're on, they're just going to feud with each other. So it's like for a little bit, we go to Lucha, we go to the Cruiserweights and they're real people, and we go to Hall and Nash, and then we're going to go to Mortal Kombat for like 15 minutes. And like, it was the dumbest thing anyone had ever seen, for the most part. Not ever, but for the modern wrestling, people are like, what are you doing? Like, and it just goes to show you, no matter how red hot you are, you're going to stub your own toe on something. And Bischoff just couldn't help himself. He's just like, yeah, we got all this cool reality-based shit going on right now, so let's make it a little fake and corny. Like, and that's what he did, and I'll never understand that. I'll never get it.
You know what's even more interesting about this?
Pretty dumb.
There is... I just find it incredibly interesting.
That's what you have to say on that? It's fucking stupid. Thank you.
It's pretty dumb. Not the Earth
it's
is going to end in 12 years kind of dumb.
That's a perfect explanation.
It's a pretty dumb idea. Yeah, no. What I find incredibly interesting about this is that son of a bitch actually just went into a Royal Rumble in 2017, an honor Royal Rumble, and got eliminated by Bully Ray, first of all, and just wrestled literally like a week ago on Hell and High Water. Yeah. I swear to God. If it's not him, it's the character. Either way, the gimmick is still around today.
Well, fucking looks like Eric Bischoff was right in the long run, wasn't he? He's right.
And now look what's the
I don't want to say
his goddamn legacy in 2019. What are we doing here?
It's like the shit that just never stops.
Now,
It's like the shit that won't flush. It's the turd that won't go down the toilet. It's really, it still pops up. He probably loves the fact that turd won't flush. He probably really does. He's like,
well, good for him. Good for him. Because there's a lot of other wrestlers that, they dedicate their whole life to it and they get injured and they don't have any money after a while and it sucks and they have no medical. But good for him, though. I mean, hey, whatever. Like, apparently he didn't make it very big in the martial arts world, so he is glomming on his wrestling character. I mean, why not? Especially nowadays, nostalgia is so big that people will they'll pay $5, $10 to get a picture with Glacier.
It's right? like like the Goon. It's like it's just like the Goon. He's like the Goon, but with a bunch of money in the beginning to push it. The Goon, people know the Goon, and you see the Goon in every gimmick royal out there,
So he debuted in '96 and pretty much fizzed out quickly. He actually had an undefeated streak going on for almost a year until he was handed his first loss by Buff Bagwell.
Well, that's fantastic.
On September 1st, 1997, he finally loses the Glacier streak to Buff Bagwell, and then he just jobs out viciously after that. But in the middle, they did debut Ernest Miller, the Cat, They debuted him, and he partnered with Glacier for a while to take on Mortis and Wrath and all that stuff. And and I think they brought Glacier back in like 99 or 2000, somewhere around that, and they kind of made him a heel, where he was sort of like he was convinced that he was a superhero character, that he was like Glacier, if that makes sense. Like, so he was like self-aware and all that stuff, and that didn't work because the next sentence out of my mouth is not going to be, and that concept saved WCW, because we all know it didn't. So that's
on the network now.
Glacier never really made anything after that. So he pretty much finished out 1997 by jobbing to Goldberg while Goldberg was building his amazing streak, and that was pretty much it for Glacier, except for, like I said, that brief period in 99/2000 they brought him back, and that was it.
And he's been on independence and legacy stuff ever since, which I find that fascinating that people will still book that shit.
It's like a short documentary.
Hey, you know what? Good for him. I say good for him. If I had a gimmick like that going, I can get booked every night. Let's go.
The greatest
I
of
would
all
do
time.
it. He's owned it, and I say good for him. Good, good for Mr. Lloyd, right? I mean, shit, good for Ray.
If you have a chance, go to the network and you could probably pick any Nitro like mid to late 96, and you'll see either Glacier himself or Glacier promo.
Yeah, you'll see the blood runs cold.
Or they can just watch today's product and they'll get just as bad as
shit,
just as bad.
Well, speaking of bad product, we talked about how WCW would have crumbled a long time before, if not for certain things. This is no different, and nobody knows who. If I asked you if you knew who Raymond Lloyd was, you wouldn't even know who Raymond Lloyd was, right? But you're gonna know who this guy is. I mean, this guy is huge.
It's gonna be great.
But before he became huge, we're talking. What did you say, Jess? Back in the early '90s.
This was 1991.
And I was not watching WCW at this time. Again, it's another product of WCW, so I'm sure Jess is not surprised. And I got to tell you, once I found out who this was, I was absolutely shocked. Didn't even know he was really even around at that time. Didn't know that this gimmick even existed. When I started watching the production for it and what they brought into it with Oz, we're talking about Oz, 1991. Huge gimmick, a lot put behind it. Jess, I gotta let you just take this one from here, man. I can't. And by the way, I guess if you want to kind of figure out where this is coming from, I swear, just look up Oz Super Brawl 1 and you will understand what I'm talking. You can get it on YouTube, you can get it on a network, wherever you want to find it. It is just, it's a real shit sandwich, isn't it, Jess?
You say shit sandwich. I say shit sandwich. And I mean that. I say that like I say ice cream sandwich. Look, I liked WCW before it was cool to like WCW. I liked WCW even when they weren't perfect. And let me tell you something about 1991. Let me give you a brief synopsis of WCW. So, Crockett Promotions owned like kind of the biggest chunk, not owned, but they had the biggest territory that the NWA kind of resided over. The NWA was a governing body, and it decided literally with a few board members like on board, like they had for a while, they had Vince Sr. on there, and they had a lot of other key players, and they would all vote who should be the NWA champion. That's our ultimate world champion. And then there was other territories that had like their champions, like Florida Championship Wrestling or WWF and all that stuff. And so they would have their champions, but the big champion was the NWA heavyweight champion. And so basically that's what it was. So Crockett Promotions had the biggest promotion that the NWA oversaw. WWF had long broken off on their own. Vince Jr. already started his dominance here and everything. And then Crockett Promotions kind of represented the majority of the NWA. So at this point, Vince started putting so much pressure on. And then when they had WrestleMania 3, it really fucked a lot of people over. It really fucked a lot of the promotions over because they were like, Vince just separated and was never part of the NWA as far as WWF was concerned. He took one W out, he called it WWF, and he got Hogan, and he took Gene Okerlund from the NWA, and Bobby Heenan, and John Studd, and Ventura, and Andre, and started off his own empire. And it worked perfectly. So by 87, people were just desperate. Like promotions were dying because WWF was national and they were breaking barriers down, and they weren't just staying to territories. They were trying to dominate the world, the entire United States, and then the world. So led by Hogan, that worked almost perfectly. So at the Crockett goes, okay, we've got to start spending some more money. We got to start branching out. We can't just stay in the Carolinas. We got to go here. We got to go to Chicago. We got to go here. We got to start being national like Vince. Well, Vince just had this unique vision, and it worked. Vince was very smart, and he really wanted to master production and make their television look better and brighter and different. And he really wanted to tour differently and to market his guys differently and to have ice cream bars and have figures and have all this stuff. So even heels that would go to WWF would have merchandise made for them, and they would get a cut of that. So it was like Crockett could not compete. So they just start spending a lot of money in 86 and 87. So much, in fact, that Crockett's like, I'm done. I don't have any more money. We can't survive. So Ted Turner steps in and says, look, when I was trying this whole crazy cable channel called TBS, the one thing that kept me alive and that always got good ratings was pro wrestling. Not Vince's pro wrestling, but like the Carolinas and like NWA and like all that stuff. So Turner was like, I'll buy it from you. I will buy your share of your promotion, the NWA promotion. You're part of it. And I'll take it in, I'll fund it, and I'll keep it going because I love wrestling. It allowed me to build the Superstation, and I will never forget that. And that really sets the stage for WCW years after, because let's be honest, from the time Turner bought it, which Turner finalized the sale in late 87, early 88, to when Bischoff finally figured out the NWO formula and turned it around, WCW would have gone out of business like 11 times. And I'm not even kidding. That's how bad WCW was in between then. They just couldn't fucking get their head out of their ass. And they tried everything. We're going to be a different brand. We're going to be an alternative to the WWF. But then the second somebody would get in power, they would be like, what's Vince doing? I'm going to copy Vince. So let's make it for kids. And like, they just couldn't get out. They couldn't get out of their own way. Like somebody would be boisterous and be like, we will not be like Vince. We will be our own promotion. And then they would get the position of president or head booker and be like, let's make characters like Vince. And they did it every time, no matter who they put in it. Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, whoever, Kevin Sullivan, whoever was a head booker, they just did it. Now, this fucking fool, Jim Herd, took over WCW in I want to say sometime in 1990. And he had no wrestling experience. And he looked like someone's grandpa. And he was the executive vice president that was named by, Turner, not Time Warner because they hadn't merged yet, but Turner Broadcasting. So there was never really there was an owner of WCW, but there was no Vince McMahon, if that makes any sense. So WCW for years, really until they died, it was always that. It was always, the buck never stopped with anybody. So in 1991 especially, Jim Herd had his arm around everything. And guess what Jim Herd's bright idea was? Let's copy Vince. Because if Vince is making a bunch of money, even if we make half that money, we got some monies. And that's exactly what I'm sure he drew that out on a napkin, and that was his business plan. He just did photocopies and he handed it out to everybody. And he's like, what do you guys think of my business plan? And they're like, I mean, whatever. Like, you're going to fucking get fired in a couple of years anyway. Like, everybody knows that. So that was WCW for years before Bischoff took over and figured things out and at least had a run of success, right? So in 91, he was doing stupid shit, just trying to copy Vince. This is why you have PN News, the rapping wrestler. This is why you had Big Josh, a guy who would actually come down. He was like a lumberjack, and he would come down with fucking bears and stuff like that. And that's what he wanted to cut Ric Flair's hair short, which he succeeded in doing, and put earrings in Ric Flair's ears and dress Ric Flair up like a gladiator with a shield and armor, and come down to the ring with women on his arms or whatever. And he actually wanted to rename Ric Flair Spartacus. We're just going to call Ric Flair Spartacus. That's what we're going to do.
Every time we talk about this, it still blows me away that you would take the most over. I'm going to say heel, the most over wrestler in the world, definitely top 3 at this point, and you want to just change it? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, Ric Flair is known all over the world at this moment. There's nothing more over than Ric Flair, with exception to Hogan at this moment. Maybe Sting at some times, right? But Flair is so over, it's ridiculous. I don't care if he's running heel work, if he's chasing the title as a face. He's so versatile, and he's so him. It's like, yeah, let's just change all that. Let's just change all of it.
But Dave, we want to make monies like Vince. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, that's
we're
where
gonna call him Spartacus,
because that's where you're.
He's gonna make us the monies, and kids will buy T-shirts that say Spartacus. What's your problem? What don't you understand?
I'm gonna style and
So this
this
cocksuck, Jim Herd. So he fucks with Flair and all that stuff, and people were losing faith in him already in 1991 because like you are retarded, and I know I can't say that in 2019, but I'm going to say it. He was retarded. He was probably
Say it
really
all you want, but
kind of retarded.
It was probably said then. It's probably a quote somewhere.
Yeah, back then, I'm talking 1991 lingo, so I can say it because people called each other retarded back then. It didn't mean to offend handicapped people. So he was that way. So he comes up with this bright idea, and the head booker at the time was Dusty Rhodes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Dusty Rhodes, the genius booker. And I know I'm going to get hate for this because Dusty Rhodes, I know, rest in peace, Dusty, all that stuff. And he's this genius creator and he's this genius booker. But for the love of God, I cannot understand how people shower praises on people like Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan.
Dude.
Because stop it right now. Kevin Sullivan, he was a good booker, but Dusty, the same thing. Like Dusty became famous for the Dusty finish. What was the Dusty finish? The Dusty finish was the heel champion escaping by the skin of his teeth, meaning the good guy beats him, and then somehow like the referee goes, wait a minute. Like, you're bleeding too much, so I'm going to stop the match for blood, like they did with Luger. And Flair will retain the title. So basically they ended the match with Flair in the torture rack. The referee's looking at Luger's face, which is bleeding, and they kind of foreshadowed it earlier on in the evening where if you bleed, the athletic commission might stop the match. So basically the ref makes it look like Flair gave up, and he rings the bell, and people go nuts, and Luger has the belt, and then the ref's like, no, I was reacting big and ringing the bell because you're bleeding. And still, you're world champion, Ric Flair. And they would just do variations of that to where you would think the good guy would win, and then they would be like, no, the winner of this bout by disqualification, Lex Luger, meaning Ric Flair keeps the title. Like, and they would do shit like that all the time. Those were called Dusty finishes, to where he was like, but he did it so much to where it got named the Dusty finish, which isn't good. So Dusty Rhodes,
it's all about the chase, baby.
He goes through the WWF machine. No, it is, but they overchase it to where the payoff never happened.
That's all true.
But he goes through the WWF. He's polka dot Dusty. He gets it over because Dusty himself, as a wrestler, is amazing and is charismatic and can get himself over no matter what, and is an absolute legend.
He can tell a story like no other.
Creatively, like anybody else, he has his limitations, or he only has one way of looking at things, and he can't change. Right. So he goes to the WWF and he comes back in WCW in like 90/91, and he gets the head booker job again because we want to be different from WWF, but wait a minute, what's Dusty doing? He's leaving WWF? Let's hire him as our head booker. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, so this is what WCW always does. So they go, Dusty, what's up? Well, we need to do things like Vince. He has kids. They buy merchandise. They buy ice cream, baby. They have kids. They have kids. Merchandise. Let's do it. So but why? We just said that we were going to be an alternative product. No. We are going to be alternative. And by alternative, we're going to be like Vince. But that's not what alternative means. I don't know what you're saying right now. I don't know what you're saying. So we're going to have this character. His name is Oz. Have you seen The Wizard of Oz? Yes, I think fucking everyone's seen The Wizard of Oz. Oh. We are going to pretend that the Oz came to life and he's the pro wrestler.
Oh.
So that's your big idea? Uh-huh. That's it. Yes, but what do you want me to say? Oh, we're going to have monkeys. Oh, you're going to have monkeys? Yes. So that's going to come back. You're gonna face Vince. You're gonna fight Vince with this idea. This is everything that you learned when you were in WWF. Exactly. If we make the Wizard of Oz a real person that wrestles,
Jess, I have to tell you, okay, number one. I have to tell you, like, I'm currently
not two, number one.
I'm currently watching this right now on YouTube or the other network. If you just type in Oz, like I said, Super Bowl 1, it's on YouTube. You'll find it right there. I can't even believe what I'm watching right now. I can't.
So this Super Bowl 1.
Can you please describe it to our listeners? What the fuck am I looking at right now?
Super Bowl 1, 1991. It's Oz's debut. So they hype him up. There's tons of vignettes before this. Lots of money, TV time put into this, by the way. This is part of the topic. So, and it's Oz is coming. Oz is coming. So it's like, oh, fuck. Really? Like, right away, everybody knew, like, fucking, like, the Oz, like, what are we doing here? None of my wildest dreams, I think they were going to, it was just going to be as lazy as Oz from the movie. Like, I mean, what the fuck? Like, so I thought, okay, maybe Oz is OZ. What is that? What could that mean? Like, out of this world, Zabomp. I don't know what Z is. Out of this world, zebra. I don't know. Like, it could have been anything. Like, and I don't know what that means. Like, it can't mean Wizard of Oz because that's ridiculous. It's already a thing, right?
That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. What, is Dorothy going to wrestle? They would never do that. It's ridiculous. It's supposed to be an alternative. So then you get to Super Bowl 1, and then Dusty Rhodes is commentating, which is super rich. And so they're like, and Jim Ross goes us in with, now we're going to go to the debut of Oz. And so, like, the old WCW stage was as follows. If anybody remembers WCW from like 90 to like 94, they had this stage where the entranceway, I should say, where it was just 3 letters, WCW, and then the wrestlers would come up on a rampway, and they would come down to the ring on a rampway, which was a platform. It was like a 3.5 foot to 4 foot high platform that would go all the way from the entrance to the ring. So it was the same height as the apron. And the wrestlers would walk on the platform. And this defined WCW for like 4 years, where people, the promotion with the ramp. So it's like, it keeps the wrestler up high and he's above the crowd walking to the ring. That was probably the concept of it. So they start putting fog out or dry ice. I don't even know what it is. And it starts covering the rampway from the ring to the stage, the entranceway. It's covering the rampway. And they drop this big, like, it's like a curtain or like a set where it's a castle, and it covers the WCW logo. So you just see this castle. So from the ring, this is fucking such garbage. I love it. They have these characters, these actors that are paid. A guy's dressed up like the Tin Man. Someone's dressed up like Dorothy. Someone's dressed up like the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion. And then like this old man that's in like a robe, and he has like a rubber mask on with like a gray beard and gray hair, with a fucking monkey on his shoulder, a live monkey with the diaper. And he's mic'd under the mask, so you can hear it muffled. And you keep hearing him say, "Welcome to Oz! Welcome to Oz!" And so these characters have to act scared because they're going to the castle that's at the end of the ramp. And so they're walking down. But the thing is, the dry ice or the fog or whatever the fuck WCW decided to put here, was covering the rampway. So when you're walking down this ramp, if you walk off the ramp, you're going to fall like fucking 3.5 or 4 feet down on the floor and probably kill yourself because you can't see. So they're acting all afraid and trembling, Dorothy and the Tin Man and all those fucking people. And they're trying to walk down, but they can't see through the fog. So they're all looking down like, are we going to fucking fall? Are we going to eat shit? So they were afraid, but they were afraid that they were going to fall and die for a wrestling pay-per-view. And the number 2 wrestling promotion at that. Like, so it's not like the news would be the next day, performers die at WWF event. No, it'd be like performers die at second-rate WWF show. Like, that's what it would be. So they're inching down barely. They can't see. They could barely walk because this fog is covering the rampway. And all the while, this fucking old man in a rubber mask is, "Welcome to Oz! Welcome to Oz!" like 100,000 times. And he's got a monkey on his shoulder, because remember the monkeys in the Wizard of Oz? And the monkey keeps jumping off because there's so much fog. So the monkey's like, "I'm fucking scared."
What the fuck? what the fuck do you expect? They're throwing fucking fireworks right at the monkey. Of course, it's gonna jump off the fucking shoulder. Like
Dusty thought that was the natural habitat for a monkey, so they didn't see anything wrong with it.
Just fog and fireworks, bro.
So monkeys live and they breed in fog and fucking fireworks. Who doesn't? So he's back on his shoulder, and the monkey's on a leash. So it's all ridiculous from the start. So they're making their way down this rampway, and at the end on this castle, which is really, I sort of got a sheet with the castle painted on it. And like that's all it is. You see this figure in the opening of the castle, like the draw gate of the castle, and it's a big dude, like with his back to them, and he's got like a big wizard hat on. He has this big cape on, and he's a big man. And under that mask is goddamn Kevin Nash. And so
shut the fuck up.
Kevin Nash, Diesel, whatever you want to call him, this is who's under this mask. So as they're finally approaching him, about 20 minutes later, because they can't see, so they're taking forever to get down to the castle, a voiceover comes over, and it's supposed to be Oz going, "Who are you? You want to see Oz?"
I am Oz, the great and powerful. Who are you? Who are you? The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come. How dare you come to me? I will show you who Oz really is. I will show the world who Oz really is.
Welcome to Oz! 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 Welcome to Oz!
He is huge, Dusty. This guy, Oz, is huge.
Brother, this just knocked my socks right off right here. I ain't never seen nothing like that.
It's the most it is as ridiculous as I am describing it. Please watch it just to get douche chills, to get like, oh my God, like they really, like they made it. They made it so Bischoff could make it better. Like, how the fuck did this company? I'll tell you why. Because Ted Turner refused. No matter how much money WCW lost, Ted Turner refused to cancel it or to let it go because he always had a soft spot in his heart. Because wrestling back in the early 80s and the late 70s drew ratings. So when he was working on this concept called a cable channel, that kept him afloat while he figured out what he was going to do with it. So
I got to tell you, man, it's almost as bad as the music that comes in, his stupid mic work voiceover. And I don't know if they were told not to say anything on the announcer's booth, or if they're just so like, what the fuck is this? They don't say anything until he approaches the ring, and it takes
because given production notes like, and then we're going to be quiet. We're going to be silent. And we're gonna let Oz just consume the audience. All 1,500 people in the crowd. We're gonna because this is a big crowd for us. 1,500.
And I have to tell you, Jess, I heard a lot of that 1,500 like laughing. You can hear them laughing on this channel. Like they think it's fucking hilarious. They're not in awe by it. They're not scared of it. They're like, what the fuck are we watching right now?
He is so convinced. Like this.
Did I pay for this? I paid real money for this.
Yeah, I'm sure that when Dusty left WWF, everything on that plane ride over, when he got hired back in WCW, and I'm getting on a plane and I'm going to Atlanta, baby. We're going to talk turkey. So in his mind, he's like, and then we're going to do this, and it's going to revolutionize this. But then something happens when you get that position, like I was saying in WCW, and you get off the plane, you go in, you walk in, and they're like, hi, what's your big idea? I mean, you came from Vince Land. What knowledge, production knowledge, and creative knowledge can you give me? Oz is gonna be a wrestler, baby, and that's it.
So
that's it. So for your fucking 3 years in WCW, that's what. Look, between you and me, they made me wear motherfucking polka dots, baby. I'm never gonna forget that shit. So I mean, that's like really like something happens, and but it's not just Dusty. It was almost every person, including Bischoff to a certain extent, that like gets that position. They're like, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna revolutionize the world, and then I'm gonna get in there, the Glacier. Like it just happens.
So to narrow this down, just how long did Oz actually last? And dig into the amount of gimmicks that Kevin Nash went into before he became Kevin Nash.
Well, okay, so he debuted as the Master Blaster, part of a tag team called the
Stop hitting your mic arm, you douchebag.
I know, I'm sorry. Oh, my fucking finger hit it. So he debuted as a tag team called the Master Blasters. He was part of them, and they were terrible. And then they repackaged him as Oz, and that was terrible. But to finish on the Oz thing, so he turns around on this thing, you know, like a little circle disc that I'm spinning around at
the one that fucking Luger can never make work. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. At least Dusty got that right. Dusty's like, if there's one thing that we have to get right, it's the circle. It has to be right. So we're going to have someone hand crank it rather than have it battery power because fucking Luger fucked it up a couple years ago. So we'll have someone under the ramp cranking it and it will never stop and it will work. That's Dusty's big. So it's probably a minor victory for Dusty. Like he was just like, hell yeah, the disc worked. It spun 360. Hallelujah. Like I swear that's what Dusty was thinking.
Oh my.
So Oz comes down and this guy still, welcome to Oz. Like Kevin Sullivan's still welcoming everyone to Oz 100 times. Super hospitable. I appreciated it. And so like he walked him down. He comes down, but you don't see Kevin Nash's face, Dave. It's another rubber mask with a big white beard that he's wearing and a big wizard hat with a big like green cape. And he's walking down and it's this generic guitar music. And he's walking down and there's lame ass sparklers in the back. I wouldn't even call them fireworks. I will call them sparklers. And so he gets in the ring and he's wearing like Sting. You know, Sting used to wear like colorful tights. It's like Sting legging tights that were like bright green and all that. Horrible. The lights come up and he takes his fucking cape off and his mask. And under it is who we know to be Kevin Nash, who is forcing his eyes to be wide open. Like, so he's making himself like bug-eyed. And his goatee and his hair they put like powder in it to make it gray. So, so it looks like he has gray hair like a wizard. And he beats his prelim up with 3 moves. And the entire time, Kevin Sullivan in that fucking old man mask is still in the ring. So he's wrestling and beating the shit out of those prelim with welcome to Oz, like in the ring the whole time with him. And he beats him with he picks him up at the Razor's Edge and he instead of dropping him forward like Ramon did, he spins him like the top. And this poor prelim almost dies and he pins him. And it's just the greatest sight ever. And right now I'm looking at it and Nash looks so in shape and so ready for this push. And it just went nowhere. By the end of the year, he was dead. It was done. And they actually agreed to pay Nash a contract leading into this. And then they realized that, oh, fuck, we're WCW and we're spending way too much money. And so we have to cut you back. And so basically we're going to pay you $300 a night. So there's going to be no guarantee, meaning like if we only use you once a week, you're going to get $300. If we use you twice a week, you're going to get $600. If you know what I mean, and so on and so forth. So Nash is like, no, screw that. Like I don't want to do that. So basically they killed the Oz gimmick and they did resign him to a different kind of contract after that, and he came back as Vinny Vegas. And from Vinny Vegas, he was actually seen on WCW television by Shawn Michaels, and I want to say Triple H possibly as well. They were in the same room, or maybe it was Scott Hall. I think it was Scott Hall. And Scott Hall knew him from WCW because Scott Hall was the Diamond Stud in WCW.
They actually wrestled. Oz and the Stud wrestled as a tag team at one point.
Yeah, and Ramon debuted on WWF in '92, like mid '92. So basically, he told Shawn like, "Oh, you like that guy?" And Shawn's like, "Yeah, that guy's really funny. Who is he?" He's like, "Oh, he's a friend of mine. His name's Kevin Nash, and he was playing Vinny Vegas at the time." And that's when Shawn's like, "Dude, we got to get Vince on the phone. You got to help me sell him. We need this guy. Let's bring him over. He's really funny. He could be like my bodyguard or something." And Nash is legit, like 6'10". 330 pounds, 340. He's a motherfucker. And so, and the rest is history. And that's how Nash became Diesel and then became Kevin Nash again after that.
That's right. And what we're talking about now is, I think it's one of the most well-known, overhyped, overspent gimmicks that absolutely failed. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the Shockmaster. The Shockmaster is an amazing story. The sad thing about the Shockmaster is there's been other gimmicks with this particular wrestler, other successes, and this poor son of a bitch. This is all anybody's ever going to remember him by. And Justin, I want you to talk about it, but we're gonna, like I said, super hype. Tons of gimmick work coming in. Tons of promo work. You know, you don't know what's coming, and we got a big surprise, and we run into Flair for the gold. This is kind of where it starts. And to your point, Jess, you said Flair was booking at this point.
I think so. I don't really know. This is late. This is like the fall of '93 for WCW. So I don't know who it might have been. Flair still might have been. It could have been Dusty again too. I honestly don't remember. It
could have been a combination of Flair and Dusty. I think they're all kind of involved there. So when we start talking about it, we start looking at this, and Jess, tell us about who the Shockmaster is. Tell us about some of his previous successes before he got here. Give us some insight to the gimmick, the wardrobe, which is absolutely fascinating, and just tell us what happened at Flair for the Gold. I think this is just amazing. I think it's something that everybody has seen, heard, but some of the things you haven't heard that WWE now has edited out is also just as funny and incredible. Take it away, man.
So Fred Ottman is the gentleman that was the Shockmaster. He was also known as Tugboat in WWF. And he would be the, wearing like the red and white stripes, and he did that, and then he turned heel, and then he joined the Natural Disasters with Earthquake, and they won the tag titles a couple times, and so he had a decent run in WWF in like 90 to 92. So what WCW was doing, they were leading into their Fall Brawl 93 pay-per-view, where it was going to be Sting and Dustin Rhodes and a mystery partner versus Big Van Vader, Sid Vicious, and the Harlem Heat. So that was the main event of Fall Brawl. That was going to be the War Games cage match. So leading up to it, they hyped, Sting, Dustin, and British Bulldog were hyping that we have a mystery fourth partner. It's gonna, Davey Boy. Who did I say?
No, you said British Bulldog. Yeah, Davey Boy Smith.
I'm all, and so then I was like, oh, okay, so it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a great surprise, right? It's gonna be good. So they're hyping someone, and we're thinking, okay, like back here, it was common for people to go back and forth between WWF and WCW because if a character got stale in one promotion, they could go to another. So I'm thinking like, okay, cool, like this, they're hyping it up for a couple weeks before, and then they're gonna reveal this fourth mystery partner on a Flair for the Gold segment. For those people who don't know what that, Ric Flair was on a no wrestle clause. When he left WWF in '93, he was able to show up in WCW in February, which is relatively quick after he left WWF, because I think he lost a retirement match to Mr. Perfect on Monday Night Raw, the very end. It was the day after the Royal Rumble in '93, so it's the end of January of '93. And he showed up at Super Brawl for WCW in '93, which was like a month later. But Flair couldn't wrestle. He had a no wrestle clause. He could be seen on WCW television, so they gave him a talk show called Flair for the Gold. And basically the set of the talk show was like a penthouse suite. And Fifi, the maid, she was just this hot chick that would come in like a maid costume and serve Ric Flair champagne, whoever his guest was or whatever. And ironically, Flair's married to her now in 2019. They actually got married, which is Flair's third or fourth wife. I don't even know. They were married, which is really hilarious. So she would come in there, and he would always like show her off at the beginning. Fifi, spin around for the audience, and she'd spin around in this little nice looking, maid costume and all that stuff. So it was like a penthouse, a really nice penthouse suite. He would have someone come in and sit on the couch, and he would interview him. It was like a Brother Love segment or a Piper's Pit or whatever you want to call it. So on Clash of the Champions 24, the Clash of the Champions leading into the Fall Brawl pay-per-view, they were going to reveal their fourth member. So they get out there, and on the show is Flair, who's hosting the show, of course. You have Sid Vicious, you have Big Van Vader, and Harlem Heat. And then on the set, it's supposed to be a face-off between the two teams, and then Sting and Bulldog are going to reveal the fourth member. So Sting and Bulldog are, cutting promos and all that stuff, and Vader and Sid are like, who's your guy? Who's your guy? Just quit dicking around. Who's your guy? And then so Sting leads into, well, this announcement's going to shock the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the Shock Master.
gonna be. All I have to say is our partner.
Now, let me tell you what was supposed to happen before I tell you what actually happened. So Fred Ottman was in the Shockmaster costume. Let me explain to you what the Shockmaster costume was. The Shockmaster costume was super high budget and very, very well thought out. I would not be surprised if scientists did not come in on this and actually, figure out the dynamics of this costume and how the aerodynamics work. So it was a stormtrooper mask. And by stormtrooper mask, I mean like the stormtroopers on Star Wars, the white plastic stormtrooper masks, dipped in scientific purple paint and dipped in even more NASA-approved glitter. And that was the mask of the Shockmaster. So Tugboat, or Fred Ottman, he wore like this fur coat, which had like the sleeves cut off, I think. And so it was a long like fur coat, and it like went down past like to his ankles. And he had no sleeves on it, and he was wearing jeans and boots, and this fucking stormtrooper mask that was dipped in purple paint and glitter. And he was supposed to. I'm sorry. He was supposed to break through the wall of the Flair for the Gold set, and he's called the Shockmaster. So he's going to shock everybody. So in rehearsal, and they rehearsed this before it went live. Clash of the Champions was live, by the way. So they rehearsed it before they went live, where he practiced. He just double axe handled the drywall. The drywall was just drywall, so it broke. And he comes crashing through the wall, and he'd be like, he had a voiceover. Ole Anderson was his voiceover, and he would be like, "I'm the Shockmaster, and I'm going to shock you, whatever. I'm going to suck your dick, whatever you want to say." So that was the whole thing that he was going to do. So they practiced it. It went off without a hitch. He double axe handled the wall. It crashed through. Looked great. Here we go. So before the live broadcast, someone said, "We don't like the way that wall looks. It looks unsturdy. We don't want him to walk up to the wall and have the wall fall before he even pushes it down. And that would look silly, right? That would look silly. Forget the mask he's already in. That would look silly if the wall falls before he even hits it. Or if he kind of hits it and it sort of falls before he goes through, it kind of looks on live TV like he really didn't knock it down like the wall was supposed to fall. We don't want that. We want it to look like he's really crashing through this motherfucker. So they put a 4x4 down on the bottom by where his feet would be to further brace the wall. So that way he really had to double axe handle it and push through it. But nobody told him that they installed that 4x4 between the rehearsal and the live performance. So they're live on the Clash of the Champions, and Sting says, "This is going to shock everyone. I give you the Shockmaster." He can't see because he's in the stormtrooper mask that's been dipped in purple paint and glitter. So he has no peripheral vision. He could barely see right in front of him. So he knows, okay, no big deal. I'm just going to double axe handle the wall like I'm supposed to, and I'll be fine. And the voiceover is going to cut the promo for me, so I don't even have to do shit. So he goes to double axe handle the wall. He doesn't know the 4x4 is there. He trips over the 4x4. He crashes through the wall. He falls flat on his fucking face. The stormtrooper mask comes rolling off on live television.
Hey, this is gonna let Sting tell the people who the secret partner is gonna be. All I have to say is our partner is going to shock the world because he is none other than the Shockmaster! All right. The Shockmaster!
I told you. Oh, God. Look at this motherfucker. So flat in his ass. So flat in his ass. Look at the size of him. I don't care who you are, boy. I don't give a damn who you are. You're going to have us. You're going to have Van Vader. And we're going to be breathing through your neck.
So you're the man that rules the world. They call me the Shockmaster. You've ruled the world long enough, Sid Vicious. Get ready. Come on, you want a piece of me? You want a piece of me? Come and get me. Come after me, Sid.
He scrambles to grab it and put it on his head and stand up, and Ole Anderson's still like, "I'm the Shockmaster. I will shock you." And it was probably one of the greatest / worst moments in wrestling live television history ever. What? How does it sound, Cuz?
I will suck you.
That's exactly what it was. And so they had to keep doing this shit. And then Ole Anderson had to keep doing that stupid fucking voice, and they cut the promo like, I'm their partner and I'm the Shockmaster, and I did not just fall through a fucking wall on live TV. And so they had to totally play it off. And so they had to play it off through the pay-per-view. In the pay-per-view, I think he actually won in the match beyond part where you could win by submission, and he literally bear hugged one of the Harlem Heat, and they tapped out from a bear hug. And so the Shockmaster win. So after that, the gimmick flopped so bad because it was supposed to be serious. I don't know how serious you're supposed to be able to take a guy in a purple stormtrooper mask with glitter on it, but they're acting like the tripping through the wall is what killed this gimmick. No. Pretty much the whole concept of this gimmick killed itself. From the hype up, you're going to be Sting and Davey Boy and Dusty's surprise partner, and it could be anybody. Who's it going to be? Who's coming over from WWF at this time? Is it going to be I don't know, like anyone? It'd be awesome. Like, is it Macho Man? No, I don't know. I don't know. But no, it was Tugboat, and he was dressed in a ridiculous fur coat with a stormtrooper mask on. And they were fine with that, but no, because he fell on his fucking face on live TV, that's what killed the gimmick. No, I don't think so. So that was the whole thing. And then after that, they kind of repackaged him. They called him the Super Shockmaster, and his whole gimmick was he was kind of a klutz. He would fall down, or he would be in catering and he would knock the whole table over. And whoopsie daisy, like a Chris Farley. They kind of tried to book him like that, and of course that just went over like a fart in church and never caught wind. And Shockmaster just died a slow death like months later. He was just kind of became like a guy that wrestled like curtain jerker or mid carder and never became anything, and that was it. He was done after that.
Yeah, and just to give people an idea back, I mean, Shockmaster, who I think so, the Shockmaster. If you were younger and you saw him as Tugboat. You saw him do a lot of stuff with Hulk back in WWF at the time. He was getting over, and he could move pretty good for a big man in there. The guy could go, and. He could have had a promising career, and to be honest, he did have a promising career after he actually won the tag titles with Tenta, who we also know has Earthquake,
Natural Disasters, baby.
Yeah, the Natural Disasters, and he did have a very promising career. But that's what I always laugh at. We always have that you think of him, you think of fucking Shockmaster just falling through a wall and losing that helmet and destroying every bit of momentum they had, taking that Shockmaster situation even remotely seriously. And just to your point, where the reactions, the only person who held their character because he just was Sid. Everyone else is like, what did they always say? Oh, he fell on his arm.
Right, Sid. If you go on the network now, you hear Sid going, "Oh God," and he's laughing. But what they cut out on the live broadcast, when he came crashing through and tripped and the helmet fell off, Stevie Ray on live TV goes, "Who is this motherfucker?" Which is fucking great. And Davey Boy Smith goes, "Oh God, he fell on his arse." They all said that on live TV. So they all completely forgot they were on live TV, and they saw this jackass fall. And no offense against Fred Ottman, he was just doing what he was told. But his jackass comes falling through, and his helmet flies off, and they're like, "Well, we're fucked anyway. Why don't we just break character and laugh?" What do you do? Sid of all people was the only one just trying to hold it together, but barely could. It was so bad. It's just so WCW. And this was just 2 years later from the Oz thing. They just couldn't again. I don't think Dusty was the main booker, but I'm going to use his voice because I just think of him, and it's just okay. So we're going to bring him in, and we're going to put a stormtrooper mask on him, and he's going to crash through a wall. Kids love that, crashing through walls like the Kool-Aid Man. And it's okay, Dusty, fine, whatever you want. The only thing that could fuck us is if he falls down on his face when he crashes through the wall. But what are the chances of that happening? Crash. That's WCW in a nutshell. That's their whole, existence up until Bischoff kind of got on a roll and changed the energy there. It's just so fucking funny. Everything. The only thing, baby, that will fuck up this shit is what is exactly is going to happen, and he's going to fall on his dumb fucking face. That's exactly what happened. And it's no. Oh, Jesus. These guys were paid big salaries, too. And they were, quote unquote, creative. And they were bookers. And it's so beautiful. Think of it. Before he fell, here was the story. what are you going to make this guy look like? Well, he's going to be, we'll call him the Shock Master because he's going to shock people. Okay, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard, but go on. Like, go on. I mean, we're all, but Turner's not going to put us out of business, so go on. And Dusty's like, okay, and then we're going to have him look really cool. Like how? Like a stormtrooper, like a fat stormtrooper. Oh, like a fat like, what are you talking about? Like, so I'm just trying to think of the creative meeting, right? Like, let's get behind that, like, brain power. How the fuck is that possible? Like, it's not like Vince, where Vince, says something and people are like, Vince, you're a genius. Thank you. Like, it's not like that. This is, anybody could raise their hand and be like, Dusty, hi. And again, I don't remember if Dusty was the booker or not, but I'm just, for the sake of argument, he is in my mind. Like, Dusty, that's the fucking dumbest thing I've ever heard of. No, who would get in trouble for doing that? It's WCW. It's not like someone would be like, well, you're fired for that because here in WCW, we have strict standards and you do not do that. Like, no. Like, who's going to say that? Flair or anybody could have been like, that's really fucking dumb, Dusty. You're going to dip fucking in purple paint and glitter? Like, what are you doing? Like, no, people just let that shit run. And it's on top of that, it's going to debut live at Clash of Champions. Like, it's fucking... just kept going. It kept.
I have to tell you, man. I'm reading. I just read some of the comments on this on the YouTube channel for that it shows up on. This guy just writes, "This is the holy grail of botchamania. I will drink from this cup and laugh forever."
Yeah, so great.
And then somebody says they pushed this guy so hard he fell. It's like,
it's actually complete. That is a really good comment.
Yeah, and then it says, "This is I like this one too." Well, if it isn't the Shockmaster's greatest foes, gravity and copyright infringement.
like how did WWE get away with that?
Yeah,
it's odd. Just, you're in the booking meeting, you're in the creative meeting. So what do you got for us, Dusty? Okay, so the Wizard of Oz, like right when you said Wizard of Oz, people should have been like, you know what? No, let's just not even do that. Let's not even. But instead, they're like, yeah, let's totally do that, and let's spend more money on a costume and a big curtain and a Welcome to Oz mask and dry ice and actors and monkeys with diapers on. Let's do all that. Like, or same thing with Shockmaster. Let's get a stormtrooper help from one of the biggest franchises in American history. Let's get a stormtrooper mask and dip it in paint and glitter. Like what? Like who stopped him? Like it's the truth, man. The reason why WWF/WWE has been so successful, and you can say what you want about the way it is now, but I mean overall, the fact that this company went public, WWF, I'm talking about, they went public. They're on the stock market.
It's amazing how huge they are.
Getting billions of dollars, billions with a B of TV deals is because the buck stopped with Vince. And no matter how dumb the character was, he was so good at production and kind of recovering from that shit that like just he made it all these years and made it what it is. But WCW just couldn't. Like, there was not even the lowliest intern could go, Mr. Dusty? Yeah, go ahead, baby. Go ahead, intern. What you got to say? You can't. I wouldn't do that. Like, nobody stood up and said, this is fucking dumb. Like, especially after you sold yourself and you got this job by saying, I came from that promotion. I have the rub. Baby, I know how to make stars now from being up there.
I'll read this last comment and we'll end it with this when it comes to the Shockmaster. And this is what somebody wrote. The best part is, even if he hadn't botched the entire gimmick within half a second, it still would have been terrible. This was actually the best possible outcome. It would have just been sad and stupid. But now, it's legendary. It just is.
It's so right. Whoever wrote that comment.
And it's fantastic. It's just such a great way to look at it. We wouldn't be talking about these items if they hadn't failed so miserably. And nothing fails more miserably than the Shockmaster. So guys, I got to tell you that's our episode about overhyped and failed gimmicks. You guys have anything to add before we move on to? We got a little surprise for Jess, by the way. He doesn't even know what's going to happen right now. So
I don't like the sound of that. I'll tell you that right now. I don't know how it can get any worse than Oz or the Shockmaster, but I have a feeling they're going to achieve that.
It may just get worse for you, and that's fine. So because you have anything to add before we get into your little surprise for the for Jesse Poo over here?
Shockmaster,
All right. Well, there you go. There's your that's your good night, everybody. No, all right. So I'll just tell you a little bit about what guys. I got to tell you something. We're finally starting to get these episodes off the ground. We're feeling pretty comfortable. Hopefully, you are enjoying them. But I have to tell you that we did a lot of practice before we actually started to get into these episodes and get the final cuts and things that we really wanted to talk about. And what we started to realize is that one thing, not too many people want to hear us talk about current wrestling because there's a lot of stuff like that, a lot of things out there. And you may still hear some of that because it is quite entertaining sometimes because we do get pretty heated. It gets pretty insane. And it goes without saying that I'm pretty sure Jess gets pretty heated. You can hear him hitting his microphone about 5 times a minute when he gets pretty upset and gets pretty animated over there. And that's no different in this episode. However, what Jess didn't realize is that all those dark match rants, we call them dark sessions, by the way, dark matches, if you will. They've all been recorded, and Cuz has every bit of that recording laid down in his lab.
I knew they were recorded, but I knew they were recorded.
I know you know, but I don't think you thought we were going to use them against your will. So, just to lay the backstory, Cuz and I were really excited about a particular vignette, cut promo, shoot promo, whatever you want to call it, with Samoa Joe it was set up really well with Jeff Hardy.
Oh,
yeah,
fuck you.
yeah, you're in trouble, bro. And I gotta tell you, so me and Cuz were talking about that was amazing. That was the closest thing to a shoot promo I've seen in a long time. Joe's amazing, and just like yeah, he's amazing. But you know what? There's only one problem with that, and he just starts yelling at us like, "You book Samoa Joe's to lose every week."
Ladies and gentlemen and fans of our wrestling podcast, may I have your attention as I introduce to you the segment in which Dave was referring to. The following segment is from the vaults of our recorded episodes of The Dark Match Sessions.
Which also makes my point. There's no reason to have that match. That doesn't help. That it definitely always puts one person on the opposite side where they have to go back to their brand and crawl on over and be a douchebag. But we talked about that inside now. Change it up a little bit. Cuz and I talked about this last night a little bit on Discord. Jess, did you catch the Samoa Joe rant on SmackDown on Tuesday?
Yeah,
It's fucking great.
You did? God damn!
I went back and watched it.
Joe's a fucking beast and a genius, and whoever wrote it, if someone had to write it for him, I don't know, but
SmackDown, man.
but I don't know why. This is the thing. I'm going to be negative again about all this all day long.
Do it
because the talent of Samoa Joe is undeniable. He's always been talented for a year.
Sure,
and he should have been on the main stage a long time ago. But the fact that they write stuff like that after they book him to lose clean every week, it just shows how fucking dumb they are. Like it's not clever. It's not like, yeah. I'm sure the writer got a pat on the back that week and wow, like Joe really got your words that you wrote down for him and he translated them. What a great job, writer. Great job, Mick Foley's son. Great job. Like, and then that's great. That's all great job for producing that segment, Dustin or Road Dogg or whoever the fuck did it. But one small problem: you booked Samoa Joe to lose every week. Like, so what does it matter? What does it matter?
It's
like
the Bray Wyatt effect.
Like, it would be different if he won a little bit, and then he could win when it matters to keep his character strong. That's pro wrestling. That's good writing. But he loses every fucking week. Like, whether it's to Shinsuke, which was months ago, whether it's to AJ Styles.
And I'm like, whoa, bro, like settle the fuck down. We're just talking over here, like he just goes off on this rant for like 5 minutes, and me and Cuz are just kind of like muting our mics and giggling in the background. And I had no idea. Cuz, hopefully you can bring it up now, because I'm pretty sure this is gonna be our intro song going forward. So if you just want to roll that whenever you're ready, that would be fan-fucking-tastic.
You're damn right. And here we go. Jess sure is a riot, having a meltdown over the poor booking decisions of Samoa Joe in the WWE. That song was made from that soundbite, which was pulled from the segment you heard in this episode of our wrestling podcast. We pulled that segment from the vaults of the Dark Match Sessions. Hey, what's up there, buds? This is Cuz, by the way, with our wrestling podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, Overhyped and Failed Gimmicks. And I hope you've already listened to and enjoyed episode 1, What Got Us Into Professional Wrestling and the Times We Met Professional Wrestlers. If you are a fan of these podcasts, please subscribe to our wrestling channel on YouTube. Stay notified, and you will know when the next episode comes out, which will be next week, actually. Episode 3, This is China. So join us as we go over the career and life of China. But if you are like me and my friends, a lot of us like to listen to podcasts while we're on the go or at work. And, you know, sometimes we have the limitations of data connection. And because of that, we also have a SoundCloud channel. So create a SoundCloud account. It's free. Download the app. It's free. I am making all the episodes that we put on SoundCloud as well available for free offline download. That gives you the ability to have it on the go. So you don't have to be restricted to leaving your phone screen on just so you can play it on YouTube. So download the SoundCloud app, subscribe to Our Wrestling Podcast, or if you prefer YouTube, subscribe to Our Wrestling Channel. And until next time, this is Cuz with Our Wrestling Podcast.